Hi, welcome to Sit With Me with Tori Christina. I am your host, and this season we are talking about mental health and not just mental health awareness, but just bringing more light to the conversation so you can see yourself maybe in these situations or see a loved one in these situations where you will actually reach out for help. So, not just awareness, but also acceptance, like teaching us how to deal with people that are going through some mental issues, like it's a real thing. I've talked to doctors, I've talked to on my show, I've had doctors, I have different people that are actually in the field, people that are dealing with mental health issues so far, like by even being bipolar, but people are managing it. So, my focus is to also let you know that you can manage your mental health. It doesn't have to get out of control because it does affect you, it affects the people around you. And you just have to be mindful of it, just like you're mindful of your everyday health. So today we have Mr. Michael Seville.
Hey.
He's a very busy man. He is a realtor. And is that all you do?
Oh man, I'm
Do you do
real
some more
estate
stuff?
investments, realtor, real estate. I actually got into real estate through real estate investments. I wasn't a realtor first, so
Okay.
buying my own properties, doing my own renovations, etc. So I have a couple properties, couple. And then of course I also help people to buy and
Did you
sell.
do like the wholesale thing? Like I watched a couple of videos
Did
on
you?
that. Yeah.
It's like
Like people could do because you could do it without having a real estate
right,
license.
right. And initially, because real estate is it's so broad.
Hmm.
Like I mean, it is probably the one of the an industry that's so broad. Like I mean, my mentor, he's 85. I mean, he has his license as well.
Hmm.
And but he's 85 and he
He's
still
still
goes
doing
to
it.
but he's still finding out different information. Like you would I joke with him all the time because my real estate license is like number 2,700,000,
Uh-huh.
and I tell
What's
him like
his?
yours is like 12. You know what I mean? But he's still
Okay.
going, and he's going, and he's like, and one of the things that he told me was he said he said don't he said always ask questions. He said because even though it looks like we know what we're doing, we don't. Now, this is an 85-year-old. We just celebrated his 85th birthday. Shouts out to Jim Wolf. And this
Hey,
guy's
Jim.
Jim. Wait, see if he listens to this. But yeah, definitely. So you're always learning. So I started off in investments first, then got into real estate,
Mhm.
helping people to buy and sell homes, mostly on the listing side now. So it's a
Okay.
little less hectic.
Yeah, my mom does real estate. Like she's retired from the state of Florida, and then she went and got her real estate license. So I love careers like that you can do at
Anytime.
any age. It's like you don't really have to retire. You can that's your retirement job.
Right.
Like I know I'm gonna be doing something. I will never
Why
stop
stop?
working
Like, why
per
stop?
se,
They
but
say you stop and then that's it. Like, nah, you got to keep that
yeah,
mind sharp.
then I really have a problem with my mental health if I stop. I gotta stay working in purpose, I'll say that.
Amen.
Yeah. So, but our show is not about real estate.
No, it's not, unfortunately.
But we have some shows. I'm sure
Right.
you'll be on soon, more sooner than later, here at Podcast Space Plus. Shameless plug. But today we're talking about
Okay.
mental health awareness, mental health acceptance. And so I heard that you had a story.
Okay, dear.
I didn't hear the whole story, but I know it's something that you deal with because what I found out is that most people that do, sometimes it's chemical imbalance. Like for myself, I have PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Okay.
And it just happens with the change in my hormones that causes me to be a little bit off. Um, but to God be the glory.
Amen.
I am doing what I need to do in the transitions of life. But I notice that when I'm really going through something like circumstances and situations in life, it tends to be a little bit more challenging for me to manage that. So I have to find different ways to handle it at different times. But a lot of people do come in that stage in their life where they're having mental health issues because of trauma, because of life issues.
Right.
So, how has that experience been for you?
That's a broad question.
I know. I don't know where to start.
I don't know where to start, but I'll try.
Okay. So tell me, okay, as and you know what? I haven't had a man on the show,
Okay.
which this
Well,
is
thank you.
pretty
I
exciting.
appreciate it. Inaugural male on the show,
Yeah. This is
and you know what? It's important. Let's first off, because as men, and it's interesting. I was listening to a pastor the other day,
mhm,
but he spoke about this. As men, we're taught to hold a lot of these things inside.
right.
I'm from the Caribbean,
Oh,
so
okay.
Jamaica to be specific.
Uh-huh.
Just one of those islands, and there's plenty others where a man is a man. I remember at a young age that my father, I think my father went to his, I want to say it was either his aunt's funeral or something, but it was a woman in his life that he was very close with, pretty much raised him.
Mhm.
He went to the funeral, and I remember at a young age them saying, I said, "Oh, I remember he had on dark shades. He went to Jamaica, came back." But one of the things that I remember this conversation was that they said, "Yeah, but he didn't cry." And I had to
Oh,
be maybe 8,
and you
9.
remember that.
Yeah, you remember that because you're taught that men aren't supposed to cry.
Uh-huh.
Men are supposed to
Be
supposed to
tough.
grin and bear it.
Very resilient.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing because men have emotions too. God created us to be emotional creatures. So to just dumb that down, that side of you down, as a man, and I'm sure a lot of men do it because even as you'll see little boys, they'll fall. It's like, don't you cry. You better get up. That's the culture. The culture is a man is supposed to be resilient.
Right. I agree. And I think here's where I think it gets kind of awry is that I think people are resilient overall. Like we're
Hmm.
resilient. I think men are taught to be strong. And I think there's a
Strong.
difference between strong and being resilient.
Okay.
Being resilient is fine.
Hmm.
Being able to bounce back, being able
Right.
to handle things and being able to make the adjustments. That's wonderful. It's when you're taught to be strong because strong is not supposed to break.
Break.
Right. So
Oh,
so if
that's
you're so
good.
if you're
Y'all hear Michael?
I'm working. I took
Strong
psychology.
is not supposed to break,
Right.
and they're telling you to constantly be strong.
And we have to be careful with these labels, right?
Ugh.
Because even in the culture, women are taught to be strong
Right.
as opposed to being resilient. Once again, I have this saying where I say words mean things.
They do.
So if we're looking at things and saying, man, you're resilient, I think we're more hesitant to put things on people because they're resilient. Because just because you could bounce back, that's fine.
Right.
But I'm not. You're not meant to. You're not meant for certain things.
Mm.
But if I say you're strong, oh, you could take this punch. You know
Yeah,
what I
like,
mean?
no. No, I can't.
No, and people aren't supposed to. So just let's be. I like to be careful with the words that I use,
Mhm.
that I expound, because communication is paramount, and not just the way that you say things, but how people hear them.
Yeah. Jamari, I'm sorry. Hold on. We have a production issue. Jamari, can you please come get this plant from over Mike's head?
Oh, that's weird.
Just like push it over a little bit.
So sorry about that.
It's cool. Just like, ye- yeah, because it's like on his hat.
Is that better?
No, like push the leaves up.
Oh, push the leaf like this. They didn't know I was gonna be this tall coming in here.
Yeah. See,
Sorry
we ain't
about
had no men. I've been little short women.
I don't want to make it look.
Yeah, okay. That should be all right. Thank you.
Is the
Yes.
is the is the microphone picking up like me moving around or anything? It's just picking up. Just make sure that like you just can continue to talk. Okay. Yeah, because I know
Like
I
project.
feel like I'm hearing it when I'm moving. I'm hearing the.
Oh,
Okay.
I see.
All right. Where were we?
We were talking about being strong
Okay.
and is not resilient is strong.
Right.
That's the issue because you're not supposed to break when you're strong.
Yeah. Strong things aren't supposed to break. If you're strong and it breaks, then there's something wrong with it,
Mhm.
right? Because it's built to handle these certain pressures. Now, you just got to be careful with the words. And so, coming from a place like from my background and that like I think we're just all taught in our culture, we're all taught to just be strong and just grin and bear it.
Right.
Um, so that's that.
Yeah. So what circumstances have you run into when we
Oh
talk
man,
about? I don't know how far back you. I'm not trying to go to
how
when
much
you
time?
was
How
5.
much time do you have?
No. This is a couch. It's called the show is called Sit With Me, not You Need to Lay Down, and we have some recordings. But how far back are you comfortable with going as far as speaking about what traumatic circumstances have happened in your life that may have challenged you in your mental health?
Hmm. I mean, I've
Has it
taken
just been
right.
a lot?
I've had God has definitely put too much is given much is required. So
Yeah.
I guess originally, man, if we went back to just traumatic experiences, would be my two sisters passing.
Mm.
I had two sisters that died in a car accident in 2004. I
Oh,
was in
wow.
college. This was my last year.
Mm.
I had one more semester to go because they passed in November, that Thanksgiving break in November. Um, and then the next semester would have been my last semester.
Mm.
So they passed, no, what was it, November 29th, 28th, 29th of November. And man, that is definitely
Both sisters?
both sisters. Yeah, I had two sisters, and they both were in a car accident going back to Tallahassee. One was in college; she was younger than I was,
Mhm.
and the other one had graduated college the year prior.
Wow.
So she passed. So she passed. So she was, one was like 18, the other one was 20, around
Oh, I'm
22.
sorry to hear that.
Had to be 22 because I think I was around 21 at the time. And you know what? I think at the time, like you don't really understand death yeah, until it hits that close. And I mean, I feel like I was pretty young. I don't feel anyone should have went through that situation.
Yeah.
Um, I guess that would probably be the most traumatic experience, one of the most traumatic experiences that I've had.
Now, did you like when it happened, um, did you did you deal with it or was it a strong moment?
That's a great question. I would say, like, you don't know how to. Like, what are the coping mechanisms?
Right.
Luckily for me, looking back on it, I was a psychology major.
Mhm.
So I definitely believed in counseling and speaking to someone. And really at the time, like like it wasn't much that you could do.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely was a strength moment because I don't think I necessarily had the coping skills in order to deal with it. I
Mhm.
remember, man. I remember, I laid in bed, for a couple of days in regards to just having to understand that trauma. It's like you just don't.
It
You,
doesn't
it
register
doesn't
right
register.
away. Yeah.
It definitely doesn't register. So that was tough. And now I'm gonna tell you who had to be strong. But I found that it weighs on you throughout the time, and that was my mother.
Mhm.
So my mom during that time, I mean, these were her two daughters.
Right.
And so, I mean, it was like I had no choice but to, quote unquote, step up because here was a lady who lost her daughters.
Mhm.
And she still was,
Were those your only siblings or
I have a younger brother. He's the youngest. So
okay.
I have one other brother.
Mhm.
So, but to see her step up, it was like, I can't do anything but deal with it if my mother's able to deal with
Right.
it. So that was a interesting traumatic thing, and honestly, just to be strong because I think most people would have took maybe would have took this next semester off, or maybe would
Right.
have
So
did
you kept
man, let me go ahead and get this thing done and out the way. So I did finish school the next semester. I went back the next semester, and they were telling me. I remember at the school because
they were saying take
yeah,
time off.
yeah. Shout out to Florida A&M University.
You know what? This is your second shout out, but go ahead.
Oh, who else did I shout out?
The guy,
Oh,
the real
Jim Wolf.
estate.
Shout out to Jim Wolf. Yeah, but Florida A&M University was very compassionate during that
That's
time.
great.
Yeah, so it was good to have that support system
Mhm.
around. And that's one of the things you got to have. You got to have a super support system.
So you got counseling during that time?
I think I went once.
Oh.
She said, "Oh, I think I went once. I went to counseling once. I think I spoke to one of the counselors in the cycle, and I mean, it was offered to me, but I don't think I was open to it at the time.
Right.
Like I said, it didn't register. It was such a huge impact. It was just so big. Like there wasn't enough talking for me to do in my thought process at the time.
Yeah. Because it's like, how do you talk through that? Like, what do you say?
Death is death is a tough situation.
Right.
It is definitely something that you have to. And here's the thing: there's like no timing on it, right?
Mhm.
Because and that's what I realized that as I went through more and more of these different situations, because I definitely had a lot of deaths in my life, definitely in the last 20 years, insane. But it's just it's just things that you go on through, and I think the important thing is the positive things that you do during those different times.
Okay.
So for me, it was finishing school. For me, it was going to go get
So that was kind of like your therapy.
I suppose it was a way to cope.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it therapy because it wasn't really me. I don't think I was releasing it. You know what it was? I think for me during that time, not what it was. Now that I'm thinking back on it,
Mm-hmm.
it was the Bible. Man, I read Job. I must have read Job
It's a good one.
Yeah, goodness.
Job's a good one.
Job, I must have read the book of Job 1,000 times during that process.
Wow.
Just in spite of.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why? The question we often ask is like, why me?
Right.
Why are these things happening to me? And it's like, okay, so why not? Like, who am I?
Right.
In the grand scheme of things,
Right.
and what is this going to teach me?
Right.
So that I think that definitely brought me closer to God,
Mm-hmm.
because when I look back on it, and even while I was going through it, there was nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that anyone can tell you. I had a friend of mine who said, Mike, I remember he told me specifically, he said, you can go two ways with this. So you can go bad.
I'm like, I'm
yeah,
scared. What are the two ways?
Listen, I've been blessed in my life to have some very good people around me. I wouldn't have made it this far if it wasn't for the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something. And if any
It's
man,
important.
it's very important. If
Mhm.
any man was going to be an island, it's me. I'm so comfortable being alone.
Mm.
Like so for some people it's scary. Like I'm just
Too alone.
Yeah. I get calls all the time from friends. Hey, Mike, you got to get out. Like, you got to go. And I'm like, man, I'm fine. I'm turn the lights off and I'm fine. Like I don't have to do. I don't have to. I'm fine being a loner.
Mhm.
However, I have to give the credit to where credit is due. Having these friends around me who were very comforting, who allowed me to talk, who allowed me to express myself,
Mm.
and didn't judge me or tell me, this is wrong or this is not wrong.
Mm.
And at the same time, a lot of them couldn't even fathom having to go through that situation. So however Mike handled it, they probably would have said it was fine, right? So that I think that was a traumatic experience. Man, lost one of my best friends to gun violence in Rivera Beach. I mean, it was like, we was very, very close.
Mm.
I can still remember the call. I remember Beethoven gave me the call. Beethoven called me in the morning. I was at the gym. It was like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
And he's like, man, he's like, man, Mike, Rock got killed last night or something like that. And I'm like, it's a pause.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember jumping in the car and driving to his grandmother's house, and his family was out there. And I mean, this is the guy who, since I was, I think 17, 18, going off to college, the one who helped me to get through my sister's situation. And I mean, I remember that year in particular. He also passed in December. So I remember in that situation. Yeah.
That's that same time of year because your sisters were in November, right?
Sisters passed in November. Rock passed in December.
Wow.
And so now I don't even go outside the house. Like from November 28th to December. And my birthday is the 24th.
Of December?
Of December.
Oh, so wow.
I just stay out the way. I'm in the house. I'm trying, I don't do extra stuff. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when he passed. So and that was I mean, because nothing is final like death,
Right.
right? It's just a finality of it, like that. That's that,
Hmm.
and uh,
This is something to think
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. So that's that. So that was definitely very traumatic for me. Like I said, best friends, hung out. This is the guy who would call. When everybody called the next day to make sure everybody was okay.
He was that
Very
guy.
very impactful person.
Hmm.
And so, that death was definitely tough for me. And that same, man, it was a lot because that was 2008. My grandfather passed that same year as well. Who was very impactful for me. My first male role model, like that was stuck with me. So it had been a lot,
Hmm.
during that time. You just, at that time you just deal with it. Uh I think and I think around that time, probably rock is probably when I did go see counseling.
Okay. I was going to ask that. Like,
Yeah,
did you
yeah, yeah.
really ever reach out for professional help?
Yeah, yeah. I think around Rock's time, I did go to see counseling, if I'm not mistaken.
And what triggered that move?
It was just like I was always open to it. Thank God, like thank God I'm open to a lot of different things. But sometimes you just can't, church it out.
Right.
Like you
But
can't.
church it out of me. No, I tried that.
Yeah, like you can't put your head
And you kind of need a mixture sometimes.
right.
Yeah.
You need to figure
All of
you
it.
need all of it. So for me, it was, some of my coping mechanisms are just working, like working extra hard.
Hmm.
I'm a workaholic because
Did you just like zone in?
yeah, what
Yeah.
my parents are workaholics, so that's a workaholic. So that's a place of comfort for me is just to get deeper into work.
Hmm.
Um, but around that time, I did say, okay, well, let me go see counseling. I think I was working at the city at that time. I had some really good health insurance, so it can get expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can get expensive, but and you have to find the right person too.
That's the hardest part, I think, when it comes to getting a therapist is like
It's
finding
big.
the right person.
Oh man, I can speak on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna speak on
Go
it.
ahead.
It's because some of the people who are doing the counseling, like they don't. Obviously you have to be, you got to have your certifications or your credits. You have to go to school for it.
Mm.
However, it's sometimes for some people, it's just a way to make extra money. Like you got people who are doing it part time. You got people who are doing it to make it, and some people just aren't good
Look,
at it.
I'm like, really? Like that's what I'm saying. Thinking like really?
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, so you get, and you have to go to people who know what they're doing. It's just like doctors as well. And I
I,
think in our culture, that's one of the,
yeah.
because we didn't never really talk about it, and it used to be so taboo
Yeah.
to go to counseling or to seek therapy, etc. There's not really a wealth of information around it.
Right.
So to be able to find someone who's
Who's good?
uh,
A good match.
good, such an interesting word, but no,
Why? Like a good
yeah, I
match.
I agree. Someone who works for you and is
Right.
actually willing to see you do the work, because you'll go to some people in the culture who are still, and there's nothing wrong with church people. I love God. I love Jesus.
I love the church.
Yeah, I don't know about the church. I love the Lord.
I
And
love
if loving
God.
the Lord is wrong, I don't
We
want to
not.
be
This is
right.
not what. Come on,
I'm
stay
so-
focused.
but so it's hard to find that matchup, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important for us to be able to vet the person, to do your due diligence on the person. And listen, you're going to spend and if you don't know and you don't know anyone, you might have to spend some money to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. And one of the worst things, another thing that we don't do is we don't spend money on ourselves, especially in regards to self-care, to
Hmm.
to sit and not do anything,
Right.
so it's important for us to spend the money to figure out what's right. So you might go through 3, 4, 5 different
Right.
therapists. You might have to. And here's the next, and I guess the tricky part is that you are going to find some therapists who are good for you, and they're going to start asking you questions about yourself that may get uncomfortable, and that doesn't mean that you need to stop.
Right.
So you have to understand the distinction of, and be open, the distinction of, is this person good for me, or is this person just telling me what I want to hear?
Mhm.
And or is this person actually allowing me to to deal with the different processes of whatever it is that I have going on.
Yeah, and I think I like that you said about spending the money for that self-care because that's an area when we think about what I always say that, you could see somebody if they're physically ill, you could see that illness. But when it comes to mental illness, that's not something that you could just see. And so people will tolerate not being healthy mentally because it's not something that everybody could see. So it's really a deep self-awareness to know that, hey, I have an issue that needs to be fixed, that needs to be dealt with, and being willing to spend the money, the time, the effort to get well.
I'm gonna tell you what, stress and mental health and the illnesses, they start to manifest physically.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a lot of people. Oh, so I'm really passionate about this.
What?
I'm really passionate.
Oh,
No, there's a lot of people who go to the doctor and the doctors can't figure out what's wrong with them. I mean, there's
and it's go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
you already know where I'm headed with
Mhm.
it. There's a it's to where the part, where they like, we this, and then even some of the stuff like a lot of our gut health, gut
Yes.
health. People, you have
With
problems,
a what's it? Irritable
bowel
bowel
syndrome.
syndrome.
You got irritable bowel. They come up with a name for everything to
Yes.
and off to medicate you to treat these symptoms, but they're not finding the root problems. You
Mhm.
got people, I mean, cancer, et cetera. Let's talk about my mother for a little bit, and I'll speak on her. My mother died of lung cancer.
Mm.
Never smoked, never been around smokers, never, outside all the time, getting fresh air. She was from the Caribbean, so especially towards what ended up being the latter part of her life.
Mhm.
Outside all the time, she exercised, she ate pretty well. She didn't really. We weren't raised on McDonald's, etc.
Right.
She's cooking, into her juicing. Into her tea. If Caribbean people, we into our teas, etc.
Mhm.
Never, and she passed. If you look if you go to the Eastern culture, you look at some Eastern forms of medicine,
Mhm.
etc. They'll tell you that um, anytime you have an issue with your lungs or even lung cancer, the manifestation of it, it comes from grieving.
Mm. Oh.
So after you, so here's a lady who lost, and I mean, no lie, in the last 5 years, prior, because she passed in 2020, but in the past 5 years, she lost her sister. I want to say 2 years prior.
Mhm.
She lost her mother the year prior to that. She lost her two brothers passed. Before that, as well as dealing with my sister's loss. 'Cause she's never really. I don't think she ever really got over that.
Right.
Yeah. So then you come and she has lung cancer. And you're like what is
How?
yeah, like how? But
Yeah.
then when like I said, I was doing some research and looking into it and into that side of it, and that's one of the things is grieving. It starts to manifest in your lungs. So I think it's good to kind of look at the different cultures because we tend to be over medicated here on the West. There's a
Right.
lot of medication. There's a lot of treating the symptoms, but what is the actual manifestation or what is the actual reason for the disease or
Right.
whatever it may be. So it's important to take a look at that. A lot of it is what we eat because you are what you eat.
Yes.
So you have to be careful on what you eat because when we talk about mental health, illness, and depression, that's what it was. When my mother passed, that was one of the things that I had to do was start eating a lot better
Mhm.
because when you eat good and you start moving, because movement is definitely helping in regards to depression is
Mhm.
you start to get different outlooks on life. It starts to help with it. It's not gonna. I'm not saying it's gonna
And
cure it.
not
Yeah,
eliminate it,
yeah,
but help.
yeah. It's gonna help. But going back to the manifestation of these different diseases, I just mentioned my mother because of that. Is that eventually, like, and that's for men too. Like as men, we can become ticking time bombs because we do hold all these things in.
Right.
We do hold these stressors in, and so now he died of a heart attack. Oh, he was
Like
healthy
he
as
was
well.
healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be the thing. Like he exercised
yeah.
every day. So
Hmm.
how?
Right.
But it's that underlying thing.
The stress. It's the stress, and it's your mental. You have to figure out different ways to you have to figure out different ways on how to and positively how to handle these different things that you're handling. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, essentially, you do want, like I said, you do want supporting people around you.
Mm-hmm.
You do want people who are asking you when they ask you how are you doing, they really care about
Mm-hmm.
how you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and not only that, but you feel comfortable in being able to express it.
Right.
You know, it's important. We have a show on that we talk about it on Fridays. Like, it's important to have a community of people that you can have and you can talk to about what exactly is going on. You know what's going on with you. You can call at 5 o'clock in the morning. Oftentimes these things it be about that 2, 3 o'clock.
Like, hello? No.
Yeah, but you gotta 5. It might be 5 o'clock. Yeah,
You have to, like you saying, you have to have people in your life that
yeah,
that are really concerned about you
right.
like that. Yeah.
And you're and they allow you to be open talking to them, and
Mhm.
it's not necessarily a judgmental, oh, like I said, go to church,
Right.
or you gotta you gotta soldier through it. Some of the things you do gotta soldier through it though, guys. Don't be coming crying for everything. No, but seriously, you gotta say, okay, well, people who can relate and you can actually at some point get it out.
Well, I think that it just speaks to life in general, like how you're saying, like your mom suffering all that loss.
Hmm.
Like that was a number of people like
Yeah,
close to her that she lost, and to end up, her passing a lung, what is it, lung
lung cancer.
cancer, right?
Hmm.
Of lung cancer is like, just makes you think how important it is for us to be mentally well, how important it is for us to release grief and trauma,
Right.
how important for us to, like, really, like I said, be self aware and understand that there's something going on here that I need to deal with because it will manifest in another way. We had Dr. Monique on here, and she said at the end of the show, she goes, "If you don't deal with your mental health, it will kill you." And I mean, I was just like done. Like, what? And but it's true. Like after a while, it will manifest in some kind of way. You see people on the street that are mentally ill, but it's just that they're just walking on the street because it has taken over, it has manifested. So as Michael is talking, we're saying that you can find ways to cope with your mental health, also ways that um, you're able to eliminate the emotions that may cause you to be troubled in your mind. You have to find an outlet. Either it's in friends, either it's in a therapist, either it's in church. If you need to go to the altar like 2, 3 times, you can. Um, but for real, like that's a part of it. All of it's a part of it. It's just, I think it's just the will to want to be well, and also to the acknowledgement of that there's something wrong. Yeah.
It starts with the awareness of it, right? And I think oftentimes we are aware of it,
Mhm.
and we're taught that it's not. Like I said, it was a stigma, and so thank God for platforms like this. Thank God that there's other platforms that people are speaking out about these different things.
Right.
Allow just to and just so you can because once you're aware of it, now you can start to kind of deal with it or figure out the different coping mechanisms,
Mhm.
right?
And then when you finally did go to therapy, like what I mean, was there any manifestations with you physically that you knew that you needed to reach out to somebody?
Oh man, I think one of the I started having panic attacks.
Mm,
Of course, this wasn't until maybe 2000 and it might have been 2016, 2017. There was a lot going on. This was after my grandmother's funeral.
mm.
Yeah, okay, my grandmother's funeral. My last living grandmother, she ended up passing, and so I remember I was having panic attacks, and I mean, people, if you don't know what a panic,
Can you describe what does a
it's
panic attack feel like?
to me, I thought it was like a heart attack, and it was like shortness of breath.
Mhm.
It was like really short, short of breath. You start to feel you can like feel your heart palpitating, and it's like you start to get these physiological, feelings coming over you. And I
Mhm.
mean, and it was just like, and it was a mixture of it was a mixture of lack of sleep. It was a mixture of the stress.
Mhm.
When I go back and I look at it. And so it was having these panic attacks. I'm just like, man, I gotta
Were
like
you, like, in public having them or you're
it
home?
was mostly when I was home.
Mhm.
It was mostly when I was home. I think I had it a couple times in public. Think it was an I'm not gonna you said how many more shout outs do I
Go ahead.
get?
You got about
I call her like my second mother. Her name's Joy. And here's one of the best things is that she taught me like really meditation. She was a second meditation person because I also practice transcendental meditation, which
Mhm.
is excellent. God, people, where's the camera?
Right here, you're right here.
Hey, meditation is key. Meditation, someone would say, I describe it as prayer is you talking to God. Meditation is allowing God to talk to you. So that's you quieting your mind and allowing yourself to be quiet. And it's not a hard practice. It takes practice, but it's not a hard practice. So one of the things that helped me to get through these what was it? What I call it?
Panic attacks.
Panic attacks. One of these things that helped
Is
to
that
get
what it's called?
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
that's what it's called. One of the things that these panic attacks was meditation, which Joy helped me. God bless her soul. She passed away a couple years ago as well. What was this meditation practice?
Mhm.
And but that was just the beginning of it. But it didn't really register until I started to get deep into therapy and figuring out what was going on with me,
Mhm.
right? Because there was a lot of things going on. I had just left my 9 to 5 job. I was an entrepreneur full time. I was real estate investment full time.
Mhm.
So I had that going on. So this was years of me no longer having a job, having a place to report to,
Mhm.
having to deal with all these deaths, having to deal with, just life in general. And the meditation was fine, but I needed ways to cope, and so I did end up seeking counseling for that, and I mean that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me at the time, and it wasn't like one and done either. It was like
Yeah.
a good. I probably was there for a good 6 months to a year
That's
because
great.
because it has to have first you have to go, you have to give it time, and it has to have an expiration date.
Mhm.
Because what can happen as well is that counseling for some people can just become a crutch where you're
Yeah,
just in there.
dependent.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
in there just having
This is
I
my
don't want to
safe
curse.
place to cry.
Yeah, or just a crapping session. Like they
Yeah,
just in there just
yeah,
and you
and then
just
they have
leave.
to listen to it because 'cause you're paying them, so
Well, I think a good counselor
it will tell
does it.
you.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
say, you know,
enough.
or guide you. I think a good counselor is going to guide you because they can't tell you. They know what the issue. A great counselor is going to know what the issue is,
Yeah,
but they can't guide you. And a lot of us know what the issue is with our friends.
right.
However, people aren't going to receive it when you tell them. They have to find out them. They have to see it themselves,
Right,
right? Because I don't know how many times you have a friend, and maybe you all can relate, where they're telling you something. You're like, I know what your issue is, and you
right.
tell them, and just and they may become combative. They may or they may not listen, or maybe they just don't listen. But a good counselor or therapist is going to allow you to see it to where you're like, oh
I see it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
see it.
instead of just telling, because sometimes, especially if you're dealing with your mental health and there's an issue there and somebody being, I guess, upfront with you about
Mm,
what your issue is, it's going to be hard to receive because first, your mind is not well. And so you're not thinking clearly. So the information is just twisted when you
right.
receive it. So, but like you said, if somebody is trained, they're able to let you see yourself in a situation. They're able to guide you to that mirror where you look at yourself and say, okay.
I'm full of crap.
Right.
But it therapy was good. Like I said, maybe 6 to 8 months or something like that. But that was good. But I'm gonna tell you what it was because that therapist at the time was very good, and she was also into just more so of heading towards this I want to say the self help genre kind of deal. And one more last shout out. This is my last shout out. Think and Grow Rich.
Yes, that's a good book.
Think and Grow Rich. So the therapist was kind of
Uh-huh.
into that arena. I would call this more like holistic therapy, which I think is what it ultimately is what we should all be looking for.
Right.
Something that covers the whole.
Right.
So spiritually, dealing with your intellectually,
Mhm.
and dealing with emotion, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
And so she kind of was into that, and so it that ultimately got me into this genre of just wanting to be better.
Mm.
And that is
That's
what,
great.
yeah, propelled me to the next, I mean, to the next level, when you have this different mindset. Here's the thing, guys, and so I'm hoping that I allow it to make it easier for you guys, is that whenever I go to these events, or when I go to these different you know seminars, or whatever the case may be, it's like 95% women. It's like 95% women in these different things, attempting to kind of understand themselves. And a lot of us need to be there, because a lot of us need to start to figure out ourselves, or what's going on with our egos, etc. Because we got a lot of healing to do, especially in our culture. We got a lot of healing that we need to do.
Yeah.
And so, and we're not going to do it the same day we got there. And we need someone to point out our different blind sides,
Yeah.
right? So,
But it's like, how do you break down that the strong thing?
right.
Like maybe a lot of men don't feel like they should attend those kind of things because they're too busy being strong.
Mhm.
Like you can't even see because I'm focused on being strong.
Listen, I can only tell you my testimony. I mean, I'm in a lot better space because of these different things.
Mhm.
So whoever has the ear to listen, as the Bible say, who has ears, let them hear, right? Whoever have ears to listen, I'm going to tell them. I'm not afraid to talk about that kind of stuff, because it's real, and it's actually going on. And if we want to start the healing process, like, because everybody, we're in a situation where everybody's blaming each other for whatever things that are going on. When it's all is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That's the saying, right?
Mhm.
So, or be the change that you want to see in the world. So
Yes.
it's like you have to be that, but you can't initiate that change if you've never seen it, and then if you have seen it, but you just don't know how to do it.
Right.
And there's already steps and models. Like, we're not the first people that this has happened to.
Right.
Like, this has been going on through history. I mean, since the beginning of time. I knew a lady who actually went to Egypt, and she knows the Egyptologist, and she said that, and one of
She's
her
a what?
she went to Egypt, and she met someone that's an Egyptologist. Like, they're the ones who take you through the pyramids,
Oh,
and
okay.
tell you about all these different
I
things.
never heard of that.
And so they're kind of like, they have to go through their PhD. Like, these tour guys have to know
They
everything, right?
really, yeah.
So one of this person's, kind of like, their dissertation is to transcribe these old, 10,000-year-old letters that they
Mhm.
found, that were, written way back in the day.
Mhm.
And she's transcribing it. And these people are talking about some of the similar things that we're going through to this day.
Wow.
It's the human condition.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing new underneath the sun,
Right.
is so it's important for us to know that there's a model there.
Right.
There's a way for us to get through it, right? So there's hope.
Mhm.
Now it's up for us to seek it,
Right.
right? So we have to continuously seek in the truth. So no matter what religion, I have a great friend. He says this: no matter what religion you are, no matter what part of life, no matter who you are, if we're all seeking truth, we're eventually going to end up at the same place,
Mhm.
because it's only one truth, right?
Right.
So,
Right. That's good. So, gosh, I have like a million things running through my mind. But okay,
it's
so
deep. It's deep.
yeah, it's a lot. And I think it's about like I said this morning we were talking about, where I'm moving with my podcast and other things that I'm doing in the more of the spirit realm. Um with my brand and things. But what I said was because we were talking about creating a sisterhood, and I was like, I just that's not my thing.
Mhm.
My thing is not to create a sisterhood because I don't really. that sounds good, but it's not
It's in the
as
brand.
attainable when people don't know themselves.
Mm,
So my goal is even with this platform, I'm doing mental health this season, but next season I'll be talking about actual health, how we eat, um, uh, things about fasting and things of that nature that make me better mentally. Like I told my sister was like she see me fasting all the time. I'm like, I really be fasting for my mental health a lot of
right.
times because when I'm fasting, I'm quieter, I'm closer to God, I can hear better, I'm more sensitive to the spirit. So then, I think better because when I'm not, it's bad. And so but what I think is I think of the whole person. When we think about creating sisterhoods or even brotherhoods, it's I can't bind us all together if we're not together by ourselves. If I'm not a whole person and I have all these issues and insecurities, it's like how can I become one with the group and accept everybody for who they are and cheer everybody else on if I have my own insecurities and issues. So, that's
Because then you start projecting.
right.
Like you start to project your insecurities on people. So that then, from the projection
And
and your
it's not truth.
insecurity, yeah, it's not the truth. It's
Yeah.
judgment.
Right.
It is, and you're judging it based on because people are mirrors, like we're mirrors to each other. So if you come in with a slightly, I'm trying to be nice, insecure from a different place, and you start looking at someone else, and they're from a different, and they might, they're fine, like everybody, because there's like really no right or wrong. Like we're
Right.
all yeah,
Everybody's individual. Everybody's different.
right.
Yeah.
So you come in, so now you start to project on someone, like and when you and that starts off, that's not pure,
Right.
right? It's not pure. It's just it's like okay, I'm telling you because whatever you're looking for, you're gonna find.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're all imperfect people, so that even more so the reason why we should just come from a place of because you're not coming from a place of love at that point in
Right.
time. You got to come from a place of love. So you constantly working on each other, and each individual needs to do it, and because the saying is true. Like a spoiled what is this? One spoiled apple will ruin the bunch.
Yes.
So you can create this sisterhood, but all
Right.
it takes is that one
Everybody
person.
hate each other on the low.
but it's that one person that's around here whispering in everybody's ear about something. So
Yeah.
you got to be careful that way, because if you have the purity in you, you can see it in others,
Mhm.
right? And you can start to say, okay, well, maybe this isn't for you at this time because this is what we're trying to do,
Right.
right? So, man, this is deep.
I know it's so good though, right? Like
Yeah,
it's good. I had Kenyatta. I'm
I
gonna give
love
a shout out.
Kenyatta. Shout
I
out to
give a shout out to
Kenyatta.
Kenyatta.
Shout out, me too.
Um
Can I give a second shout out to Kenyatta? All right. Shout out to
she
Kenyatta.
was she was really good. And I text her like last week. I said I still am hearing her in my spirit because she talked about being, just being who you are. And a lot of times when people have mental issues, they get into drugs and alcohol, and other things to kind of defer their attention away from the truth of who they are. And coming into the place of like really accepting who you are allows you to just be,
Mhm.
and a lot of times, the world system, different systems, we're trying to match up with this one and be this way and be that way. And even I know from childhood, being brought up a certain way and other people's expectations, you kind of, you have to fight to be.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to fight to be you. You have to fight to be pure. You have to fight to be whole. And when we're talking about just that whole mental space of being
Hmm.
is it's a journey, you
Never
know?
stops.
It's a journey, but it's a journey that you have to intentionally take.
1,000%. I love Kenyatta and just that its issue of being. Here's the thing is that people aren't aligned. Like we're not aligned. I remember when I used to work with the kids, I used to always ask them like, who taught you that?
Mm,
Because they would say something and
And
just
you like, it
yeah.
didn't come from
Yeah.
you. It came from somewhere.
They just
It was
repeat.
planted.
Yeah, you just repeating it like I remember Tupac said it as well. Like he said, a lot of people are just characters. They adopt this way of living. They adopt the this being. Like when you walk, you'll drive around and you'll see people. They walk the same way. They
Yeah.
have the same clothes on.
Yep.
They may talk the same way. They get triggered by the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because these are learned behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you start to come into the knowing and start to know, come into the knowing of yourself,
Yourself.
a couple things happen. You may start to express yourself, and oftentimes this happens at a younger age, and someone is going to discipline you or say something that makes that self retreat back,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's still there. It
Right.
peeked his head out, or
Yeah.
you said something, and it was like, you don't do
Trigger.
that. Yeah, you don't do that,
Right.
or men don't do that, and so
Mm-hmm.
boom, it hides. So now this is where we start to have this misalignment within ourselves, because now we're playing. We don't want, I always say, here's my new thing is like I look at everybody as a child now. Like I'm having conversations with children, and not from I'm a condescending point of view, but I'm speaking to people's child,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they start to get upset or something. There's an inner child thing, which is there's something that happened when you were a child that happened. Long story short, you speak to their children. So now these children are still there,
Mm-hmm.
and these children want to be seen, and these children want to be heard. This inner child that I'm speaking about. Um, However, society says, or the matrix says,
Mm-hmm.
that you need to do this way. In our culture, you need to be a Democrat, because like 90% of people are Democrats, right? Hey guys, I
You need
love
to
you
be a
guys.
Republican.
Yeah, in our culture, all right. But you need to be that. So you have people who may question. It was a time during, and I hate to bring up the politics, but it was a time during politics when you couldn't even question certain politicians, because if you question them, then you were for the other side, and that
Mm.
was a problem. So you had,
You're just trying to get understanding.
yeah. So it's like, so you have these different misalignments because you're not. Society tells us that we're not allowed to do it. So now when you go to talk about the being, it takes a strong person to have to go in and say, this is not who I am.
Right.
And so now I need to, and I want to do this work, because make no mistake about it, it's work.
Definitely.
You're talking about fasting.
It's work.
If there's fasting is work. If there's ever a magic pill, I'm telling people, for fitness or for mental health or for spiritually, if there's a magic pill, it's called fasting.
Yes.
So if you can fast for a day, you can fast for 3 days, you can fast for 5 days. I'm telling you, at the end of those 24 hours, 36 hours, 72 hours or 96 hours, you are going to be you're going to be more aligned with whatever it is, and that's for your health wise, because you're cleaning out your liver, you're getting all these toxins out of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, you're getting all these different thoughts out of your body. If you're spiritually, if you're whatever your intentions are,
Mm-hmm.
it changes things, but it takes work.
Yeah.
Because we're so,
Discipline.
yeah, discipline. You're so habitually used to eating, going to the fridge or passing by. You're triggered all kinds of ways to eat. You're triggered all kinds of ways to drink. You're triggered all kinds of ways. So it's like, sometimes I don't know if it happened to you, but I say I'm starting to fast, and at 3 o'clock, all of a sudden I'm eating like a carrot or something.
Right.
Like, why am I eating a carrot? What did I say?
No, I was like, so we were doing pretty much just doing plant-based diet right now. So, but I had some cashews, right? And I'm eating these cashews, and I know like nuts still make you gain weight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not gonna buy anymore because I just be eating them for
For
no
no reason.
reason. Like I threw the cashews out the window because I'm like riding, just eating these cashews. I'm like, I don't even want the cashews. I really want a piece of fruit right now,
Right.
but I don't have fruit. I have these cashews, and I'm gonna eat this whole can because it's there, and I really just threw them out because that's the work.
It's the work.
You know what I'm saying? It's the work to tell myself, you don't really want these cashews. You're just eating to be eating. You're gonna gain a pound eating them anyway. Like you know, you have to have that self conversation.
Right. And just a tip, put a sticky note on the thing. And then you know what I do? I put a sticky note on the fridge that says drink water. Because oftentimes we go to the fridge and we're not even hungry. We're
Looking for
thirsty. We're
something.
thirsty. Like we're
Yeah,
thirsty. And
thirsty.
so
Because
you should
isn't
just
it like you're sometimes like you're dehydrated and
yeah.
it's
It's
yeah.
all we that 90 for me it's like 90% of the time that I'm eating, I'm more so thirsty than I'm hungry, but it's just a trigger. And here's the oh man, I'm about to go deep too. This is the thing with our feelings as well,
Mhm.
is that we can't identify, most people can't identify what they're feeling. Most people have like only an understanding or a concept of like three or four different feelings,
Mhm.
which is like anger, happy, um, sad. It's like three basic things when there's like, I don't know, it's like 16. The chart has like 16 or something different
I know
feelings.
I don't know how I be feeling sometimes.
So get a chart. That's the same thing like the sticky
I'm
note. You
for
have a
real. I
chart.
be like, I feel some kind of way. I'm glad they came up with that saying some kind of way. Cause sometimes I just be feeling some kind of way and I don't know what it is.
Um, get a chart and then start to identify just like a kid, because most of us we need to start from that level of a child where we look at a chart and we say, okay, this is jealousy right now. That's what I'm feeling. So I can recognize it. So now I know how to cope with it.
Right.
Right. This is
That's
anger.
good.
Okay. I need to figure out. So it's like you need to we words are powerful things. They have meanings.
Mhm.
So we need to figure out what it is that we're feeling. So like just going back to the physical aspect of it or eating, is that we sometimes we want certain things. Like a certain dogs know they start to get sick, they start to eat the grass. That's what we were talking. A dog is sick, it'll eat the grass or something.
Mhm.
There's certain foods that will help us out during this time as well, that will help to keep us satiated. That will actually our body is actually craving. But we only know one thing. One person might only know McDonald's. I'm just
Mm,
gonna go to McDonald's.
right.
And so you end up overeating certain things when all you needed to do was have this, ginger tea, have this, piece of fruit, have this, because that your body was craving the nutrients from this fruit.
Right.
But the world is in such abundance that we're just like,
And
I'm,
then we so I
I'm gonna
think
get
you're
this
like
snack.
really like so distracted though too to be that in tune with what you really like what your body is calling for.
Right,
And we're talking about eating, cuz sometimes I'll be like I said I really wanted a piece of fruit, but I
right,
didn't have it, so I'm just eating these cashews, but I could tell that I wanted fruit because
right.
fruit is cooling. I wanted something cool. I wanted something refreshing, and I got some watermelon at home.
There you go.
So that's what I really wanted. But even sometimes I'll crave like I. This is off the off. See, this next season, I should have bought Mike next season. Um,
I'll come
I
back
wanted some
next season.
what is it like with the tomatoes and stuff chopped up with red
Salsa.
onions? It's like not salt. Well, pico de gallo, it's still
Okay,
same thing. But like I could just eat that by itself. You
that's
know
not
what I'm
bad, right?
No, it's just tomatoes and onions and cilantro, jalapeno pepper.
Tomatoes are dicey as long as you don't have a if you don't have a, because it's a night, what do they call it? Tomatoes like poisonous.
Really?
Yeah, like especially the seeds.
Really?
Right. So it's nightshade. That's what it's called. It's from the nightshade family. So some people need to be careful. You might be fine with it. Some people need to be careful with tomatoes because it is a nightshade. It's from the nightshade family.
What's the nightshade
It's
then?
poison. You know,
Really?
a lot. Oh man,
Look,
it might
now
be it might be next season, but
Ah!
but plants as great as they may. First off, I don't know any indigenous people that are vegetarian. That's number one, but that's fine. I understand this is a big thing, and we do need to be careful on what we're eating, right?
The only reason I stopped eating meat in December. That was only because of my hormones, though.
Right.
So
You got
I probably could eat like because I know they grow the meat now without the hormones and
right,
everything. But I had I had my hormonal issues with the PMDD is one thing, but like physically it was doing something to me. So once I stopped eating it and I was just doing fish, um
because you got to when you get into food, like and and so everyone has their different ways of doing the things,
Yeah.
and you can go back biblically as well, like how they killed the food,
Right.
right? So
And
you
the
when you
emotions of the
yeah, so you
animals and
start yeah, so
stuff.
you start
Yeah.
to get the kosher because if an animal is killed a certain kind of way, then it secretes these hormones because what is it? The adrenaline is
Right.
going to different. So
Just like us.
yeah, so it's a way that it's killed, and then of course, who knows what they feeding some of these animals nowadays?
Right.
Like there's a
Even the
definite
vegetables. I seen a carrot like
man. Let
this
me tell
big.
you
I was
something.
like, that's only for horses. Like, what did they put in
Certain
this? It's
and
like
vegetables should be
crazy.
prepared a certain kind of way. Like
Mhm.
in Jamaica, we have what they call aki. It's from the tree, but it's a poisonous tree, so it has to be cleaned out. It has to be cleaned
Mm.
a certain kind of way,
Mhm.
or you can get sick. And supposedly people died from it. I've never heard of anybody dying from it, but
Is
they
that with
definitely.
artichokes too? I heard them say that on
I
Chop.
don't know, but it might be. It might be. It's
Because they
just
like if you don't clean it a certain way, it can really be harmful to you.
and that's what with these plants is that plants have defensive mechanisms as well.
Mhm.
So there's
Yep.
certain so plants can't cassava is a big one. Yucca, people call it yucca or something. Like
Mhm.
that's not really good for you, right?
Mhm.
But we eat it anyway. So it's just like you got to
I don't
be
eat.
you don't eat it. Oh
Mm-mm.
man, it's good, but especially if you're vegetarian, it's not too many things that I like as being a vegetarian. But you just got to be careful. So health is huge.
Mhm.
Health and let's bring it back because health it will also work with your mental health.
It does.
It does
It's a
because
big piece. That's why I decided that next season, that's what I would do because I wanted people to be. My idea is I want to be able to give people answers and
mm,
resources to handling this thing because when we go through life and like you with all those deaths, like that's hard. That's hard to handle. It's like, how do what do I do? How do I do? What's next? So just by listening to this podcast, you know that getting help outside of church is good. Uh,
Paz, I
but
love you, pastors.
really going to church, going to a very good Bible-based church is very helpful as well. Being spiritually grounded, reading your word, meditation, prayer, therapy. What else you said?
Oh man, eating right? Did I say
Eating,
eating right?
eating,
Moving, getting
eating,
moving.
moving.
Yeah, being around some supportive people um, is huge.
Supportive
Uh,
people.
yeah, and just I think at the end of the day, you got to learn yourself. You know, just harping on that. The more in tune you get with yourself, the more spiritual. Because even with the death, you mentioned that, and I was listening. There's a guy, Michael Singer, guys. If you all haven't checked out the Untethered Soul with Michael Singer, you got to check it out. But
That's your eighth shout out.
I don't want to.
Go ahead.
I don't want to steal people's stuff.
Yeah.
But the Bible talks about there's a time he brought this up. The Bible talks about Solomon. There's a season.
Yeah.
So there's a season for everything, and these seasons aren't right or wrong. Like there's winter, there's spring, and they're all needed. All this stuff is needed. So once you become one with yourself, because there's only two things that's promised in life: that's taxes and death, right? So it's coming,
True.
so you have a season of it, and it's being able to go through that season as healthy as possible and find out like
What
what
do
is
you
this
need in that season?
what is it yeah, what is it teaching
Yeah.
me, right? Like what is it teaching me? So it's important. So I know what all these things teach me. Now here's one thing about me that happens that and I had to work on is that I'm not really empathetic towards people's situations because I'm just like I didn't see
Like
I done been
you
through.
want to hear this
Yeah,
story?
you want yeah. So, but it's important for me to listen anyway because
Yeah.
it's a mountain of people. But I had to realize that within myself, like, Mike, you're not really empathetic. That's what this part of this stuff is teaching me.
That's great.
So what you went through this, and you wanted people to be empathetic towards you. No matter what a person comes to you, you need to be empathetic towards them or
Right.
have compassion because that's the world to them. You
Right.
need to listen more.
Mhm.
You need to pay attention more. You only have this finite amount of time with people. You need to be more in tune. You need to make this conversation that you're having with this person the most important conversation that you've ever had
Mhm.
because it is because it's happening now.
Mhm.
And what are you supposed to learn from it? And if you're if they're open to it, what are you supposed to say? Or what are you not supposed to say? Maybe
Mhm.
just there to listen. So
Mm.
It's just seasons, and there's no right or wrong to it. It just is. What am I learning? What am I here to learn from it?
And I like that idea because seasons are different and you need different things for different seasons. And even like I said with my health and not eating meat right now, that's what I'm doing in this season. I never claim to be a vegetarian or a vegan, anything like
She
that.
said she
But
don't.
I hate classifications. I hate definite things because things are always
Right.
changing. We're always changing. We're always growing. We're always evolving. So I don't like to be like categorized. So I it is seasons. It's really seasons. And then this season of your life, you have to figure out what you need and what you don't need, who you need and who you don't need,
Mm.
what you need to be eating and what you do not need to be eating, even like what you listen to. I know certain seasons of my life I can't listen to Megan because like
Who's Megan?
the stallion. I'm serious. Sometimes you can't listen to Megan. Sometimes it just has to be John P. Key, like all day, every day. But it's just figuring out that's how I'm aware of what I can take in and even,
Mm.
what you listen to, what you watch, what you entertain, and the influences that it has on us mentally and physically and emotionally. So I would like to thank Mr. Michael Seville for being so transparent with us today, um, and sharing your story. I'm sure there's more to tell.
Oh man.
I might I think I'm gonna have a panel because I still have one more show in this season. And I think I want to have a panel of people to continue this conversation. I think I know who I have in mind. So I may be asking you back for this season or next season. So at
As long as the money hit my bank account like it did this morning, I'm fine.
what?
No.
Don't
No,
tell
no.
people that.
No, no,
Like,
no.
what
This was good. This
happened?
was good. This
They're
was
gonna be
fun.
like, "Where my money at, Tori?" No. So,
Better
Michael, do you
management.
have any final words that you would like to leave with somebody? If somebody's watching and listening in, especially a man that
Mm,
is dealing with, his mental health, and he knows that it could be better,
mm.
that he doesn't have to be in that place because some people find themselves in those places, in those pits where it's dark and it's lonely and it's like, where do you get started? What would you say to them?
Brothers, brothers. If I'm talking to the brothers, and I guess this would go for the sisters as well, is that it doesn't have to be that way. The moment you can come to the realization that it does not have to be that way, that there is something else on the other side, make a decision and just do it. You know, just make a decision and just do it. That's what I would say.
Make a decision and just do it. We talked about that on another show. It is a decision. It's a decision to be well. It's a decision to be whole. It's a decision to do something different to get a different result. So, you guys heard it here first. This is Sit With Me with Tori Christina. I am your host. My guest today, Michael Seville. You can look him up on.
What am I on Facebook and Instagram?
Are you
Facebook,
Michael? Are
Michael
you?
Seville Real Estate on Instagram, Michael Seville on Facebook. Check us out on Friday nights, guys. 6:30. We do a show. It's called Community Beacon. Me and Joel Simmons, always dropping jewels, always excellent shows. We did. Did I say Happy Father's Month? Happy Father's Month to everybody.
Father's Month.
Yeah, goodness. So we did we did a Father's Day month. I just decided that we're celebrating fathers for the entire month of
Oh.
June. But yeah, check us out. 6:30 Facebook Live and on YouTube, Tenacity Foundation. Check us out.
Cool. All right. Thank y'all. Listen in for our next podcast. Remember, next season, we're going to be talking about health, like from the plate point of view. All right. I'll see you soon.